Taman stood at the observation window of the Galactic Council space station Triumph and watched the stars. His reflection stared back at him. A young man barely 30 years old, wearing the neutral gray uniform of the Korean Stellar Commonwealth. He touched the badge on his chest that marked him as an independent observer. In 3 hours, he would board a transport to the war zone. His hands were steady, but his stomach felt tight. Behind him, the door opened with a soft hiss. Jiwoo entered, carrying 2 cups of tea. She was 15 years older than Taman, with gray streaks in her black hair and kind eyes that had seen many conflicts across the galaxy. She handed him 1 cup and stood beside him at the window. "Nervous?" she asked. "A little," Taman admitted. "This is my first assignment as lead observer." Jiwoo smiled. "Don't worry. Galactic wars are very predictable. The Council and the humans have been fighting for 3 months now. It should be resolved within another 5 or 6 months. Very standard." Taman sipped his tea. It was warm and sweet. "Tell me about the humans again. I read the files, but you've actually met them. They're newcomers to galactic society," Jiwoo explained. "Only joined 70 years ago. They come from a planet called Earth in a system they call Sol. They're strange creatures. Very emotional. They laugh easily and cry easily. But they're also stubborn. When the Council told them to abandon the mining colony on that nitrogen moon, they refused." "Why would they refuse?" Taman asked. 17 other species claimed that moon first. The humans say they need the nitrogen for their colony ships. They have a lot of people and want to expand. Jiwoo shrugged. The Council couldn't allow it. "Rules are rules. So here we are. War." Taman looked out at the darkness between stars. Somewhere out there, people were fighting and dying. "What are the humans like in battle?" "I don't know yet. That's why you're going." Jiwoo patted his shoulder. "Document everything. Take notes. Record videos. Stay safe. The Council expects the humans to surrender within 2 months once they realize they're outnumbered. This should be simple." 6 hours later, Taman arrived at the human defensive line. The transport ship dropped him at a small station orbiting the contested moon. A human officer waited for him at the airlock. The man was tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a dark blue uniform with strange symbols on the shoulders. "I'm Hyunwoo," the officer said in perfect galactic standard language. He held out his hand. Taman shook it. The human's grip was firm and warm. "Taman, Korean Stellar Commonwealth. I'm here to observe and document. We know. Command told us you were coming." Hyunwoo picked up Taman's bag without being asked. "Follow me. I'll show you to your quarters and then give you a tour." The human station was different from what Taman expected. It was clean but crowded. Soldiers walked quickly through narrow hallways. Some nodded at Hyunwoo as they passed. Others stared at Taman with curious eyes. The air smelled like recycled oxygen and something else, something sharp. Coffee, Taman realized. The humans drank a lot of coffee. Hyunwoo led him to a small room with a bed, a desk, and a window showing the moon below. "It's not fancy, but it's safe. We don't have many guest quarters." "It's fine," Taman said. "When can I see the defensive positions?" Hyunwoo checked his wrist device. "In 2 hours. The Council forces are gathering for another assault. You'll have a perfect view from the observation bunker." He paused at the door and looked back at Taman. His face was serious. "I should warn you. War isn't like the textbooks say. It's messy, loud, sometimes confusing." "I understand," Taman said. "I've studied 17 different conflicts." "Studied," Hyunwoo repeated softly. "Yes, well, you'll see soon enough." He left, closing the door behind him. Taman unpacked his equipment. Recording devices, analysis tools, a medical kit, writing tablets, everything an observer needed. He pulled up files on his datapad and reviewed the information about the Galactic Council forces. They were led by Commander Vectress, an insectoid from the Hive Collective. Vectress had won 12 battles without a single loss. The force included 30,000 soldiers from 8 different species. The humans had only 6,000 defenders on the moon. The numbers didn't look good for humanity. 2 hours later, Hyunwoo returned and escorted Taemin to the observation bunker. It was a reinforced room built into the side of a crater. Through the thick window, Taemin could see the rocky surface of the moon stretching to the horizon. In the distance, the galactic forces were gathering. Thousands of soldiers in neat formations, armored vehicles in perfect lines, massive war machines standing like metal giants. Beside Taemin, Hyunwoo stood with his arms crossed. 3 other human officers worked at control panels, speaking quietly into communication devices. "They're following the Kelvorian doctrine," one officer said. "Classic formation. 3 waves. Heavy armor in front." "Predictable," another officer replied. Taemin pulled out his recording device. "Where are your soldiers? I only see a few defensive positions." "They're around," Hyunwoo said. His voice was calm, almost amused. On the horizon, the galactic forces began to move forward. They advanced slowly and steadily. Perfect order, perfect discipline. This was how galactic warfare worked. Everyone knew the rules. The attackers advanced. The defenders held their ground or retreated to secondary positions. Eventually, one side asked for terms and the war ended. Taemin recorded everything. The approaching army looked unstoppable. 5 soldiers for every human defender. Better weapons, better armor. Victory seemed certain. Then the ground exploded. Taemin jumped back from the window. On the moon's surface, massive explosions tore through the first wave of galactic forces. But these weren't random. They were precise, calculated. The explosions hit exactly where the armor was weakest. Vehicles flipped over. Soldiers scattered. "What was that?" Taemin gasped. "Mines," Hyunwoo said calmly. "We've been planting them for 2 weeks." But the galactic forces didn't retreat. They were trained for this. They moved around the minefields and continued advancing. That's when Taemin saw the human soldiers. They appeared from underground bunkers and from behind rocks. They didn't stand in neat lines. They moved in small groups, appearing and disappearing. Their weapons fired in short, controlled bursts. The galactic forces tried to return fire, but the humans were already gone. They attacked from a different angle, then another angle, then another. It was chaos, but controlled chaos. Taemin realized he was watching something he had never seen before. The humans weren't fighting like any species he had studied. They didn't follow the rules. They didn't advance in formation or hold defensive lines. They moved like water, flowing around obstacles, finding weak points, striking hard and fast before disappearing again. A second wave of explosions hit the galactic forces. Then a third. Taemin saw soldiers from 6 different species running in confusion. Their commanders shouted orders, but the soldiers couldn't see the enemy clearly enough to fight back properly. "This isn't right," Taemin whispered. "This isn't how war works." Hyunwoo looked at him. "It's how human war works." For 3 hours, the battle continued. Taemin watched in growing horror as the galactic forces, despite their superior numbers, slowly fell apart. The humans used tricks Taemin had never heard of. False positions that drew enemy fire to nothing. Fake retreats that led soldiers into traps. Weapons that fired from unexpected angles. Finally, Commander Vectress ordered a retreat. The galactic forces pulled back, leaving behind burning vehicles and wounded soldiers. Human medics appeared immediately, treating both human and alien wounded without discrimination. Taemin looked at his recording device. His hands were shaking. "I don't understand. You were outnumbered 5 to 1. "Yes," Hyunwoo said. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just looked tired. "Would you like some coffee? You look pale." That night, Taemin sat in his small room and typed his first report to Jiwoo. His fingers moved slowly over the keyboard. He deleted sentences and rewrote them. Nothing sounded right. Finally, he settled on simple truth. The Galactic Council has made a terrible mistake. We don't understand what we're dealing with. Humanity doesn't fight like us. They fight like something else. Something we've never encountered. I need to learn more. I need to understand why they're so different. He sent the message and lay down on his bed. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the battle again. The chaos. The precision. The contradiction of humans healing their enemies even as they fought them. Outside his window, the stars watched in silence. The second battle came 3 days later. Taemin stood in the same observation bunker, but this time he knew what to expect. Or thought he did. Beside him, Hyunwoo drank coffee from a metal cup and watched the horizon through binoculars. "They're bringing more forces this time," Hyunwoo said. "Commander Vectress is angry about the first loss. He wants to prove his doctrine works." Taemin adjusted his recording equipment. "How many?" 50,000 soldiers. 8 to 1 odds. Hyunwoo lowered his binoculars. "They think overwhelming force will break us, will it?" Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. "No." The galactic forces appeared on the horizon. This time they were more careful. They sent drones ahead to detect mines. They advanced in spread-out formations instead of tight groups. They had learned from the first battle. Commander Vectress was a smart leader. He adapted his tactics, but the humans had adapted too. Taemin met Young-Soo the day before the battle. The combat engineer was a short man with strong hands and a friendly smile. He showed Taemin the tunnel system the humans had built under the moon's surface. "We've been digging for 6 weeks," Young-Soo explained as they walked through the narrow passages. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. 300 kilometers of tunnels. We can move troops anywhere on the battlefield without being seen. "This must have taken enormous effort," Taemin said, ducking under a low ceiling. "Yes, but we're good at digging. Humans have been building underground bases for thousands of years." Young-Soo patted the tunnel wall. "On Earth, we built subway systems under entire cities. We dug bunkers that could survive nuclear weapons. This is nothing compared to that." Taemin wrote notes on his datapad. "Nuclear weapons?" Young-Soo's smile faded. "Weapons that can destroy whole cities in seconds. We built them. We used them. Then we learned not to use them anymore. Humans are good at learning from mistakes." Now, watching the approaching army, Taemin remembered Young-Soo's words. The humans were always preparing, always planning. They thought about war differently than any species he knew. The galactic forces moved carefully across the moon's surface. Their drones found some mines and destroyed them. The soldiers advanced behind heavy shields. They were taking no chances. This was textbook military strategy, improved by experience. Then the tunnels opened. Hatches burst open across the battlefield. Human soldiers poured out behind the galactic forces, not in front where they were expected, but behind. In seconds, the careful advance turned into chaos. The galactic soldiers had to turn around to face enemies that appeared from nowhere. But Young-Soo's surprises weren't finished. The ground under the galactic forces' main formation collapsed. Not from explosions, but from carefully weakened supports. Hundreds of soldiers and vehicles fell into underground chambers. Not deep enough to kill, but deep enough to trap. Taemin watched in amazement. They turned the entire battlefield into a trap. Not a trap, Hyunwoo corrected. Many traps. Inside other traps. The galactic commanders tried to reorganize their forces. They were well-trained and disciplined. But every time they formed up, another surprise hit them. Smoke screens that blinded their sensors. Strange sounds that confused their communications. Small drones that looked like debris but exploded when approached. In the middle of this chaos, Taemin saw something that confused him. A human medic was running across the battlefield with a red cross symbol on her armor. She stopped at a wounded alien soldier and began treating his injuries. Enemy fire was hitting all around her, but she didn't run. She just worked quickly and efficiently. "Who is that?" Taemin asked. "Daun," Hyunwoo said. "Our best field medic." "But she's helping an enemy soldier." "During battle." "Yes, that's what medics do." Taemin recorded everything. This contradiction made no sense. The humans fought with terrifying efficiency, using every trick and tactic they knew, but they also healed their enemies. They saved lives while taking lives. How could both be true? Da-Yun finished treating the alien soldier and moved to the next wounded person. This time it was a human. She gave both the same care, the same quick professional attention. Then she was up and running again, her medical bag bouncing against her hip. The battle lasted 5 hours. It was brutal and confusing and nothing like the wars Taemin had studied. The galactic forces had every advantage except one. They didn't know how to fight humans. Commander Vectress finally called for retreat. His forces pulled back in disorder. Taemin counted the casualties on his datapad. The numbers made him feel sick. The galactic forces had lost 20,000 soldiers, 40% of their assault force. In galactic military history, no army had ever suffered such losses while having superior numbers. The human casualties were much lower, 800 soldiers killed or wounded. Taemin didn't understand how this was possible. After the battle, Hyunwoo took Taemin down to the medical bay. It was a large room filled with beds and medical equipment. Human doctors and nurses moved between patients. Half the patients were human. The other half were aliens from the galactic forces. Da-Eun was washing blood off her hands at a sink. She looked exhausted. Her uniform was dirty and torn in places. When she saw Taemin, she smiled tiredly. "You're the observer," she said. "Hyunwoo told me about you." "I watched you during the battle," Taemin said. You risked your life to help enemy soldiers. Diane dried her hands on a towel. They're not my enemies. They're patients. When someone is wounded, they need help. It doesn't matter which side they're on. But your people are fighting them, killing them. Yes, war is complicated. Dawn walked over to check on a patient. It was a reptilian soldier from the Galactic forces. His scales were pale and he was breathing shallowly. Dayun adjusted his medicine and spoke softly to him in his own language. During battle, we fight because we have to. But after battle, we help because we choose to. Taman sat down on an empty chair. His legs felt weak. I don't understand humans. Most species don't, Dawn said. She moved to the next bed where a human soldier with a bandaged arm was sleeping. She checked his vital signs and made notes on a tablet. We don't understand ourselves sometimes. We're capable of great violence and great kindness, often at the same time. It's confusing for us, too. That evening, Taemin met with Commander Skrillex through a secure communication channel. The reptilian commander had led the frontline forces during the battle. His face filled the screen, his scales dull with exhaustion. Observer Taemin, Skrillex said. His voice was rough. I need your assessment. Are the humans using illegal weapons? Banned tactics? Taemin reviewed his notes. No, Commander. Everything they're using is within Galactic War Convention guidelines. They're just using them differently. Differently. Skrillex repeated the word like it tasted bad. I've commanded forces in 15 battles across 9 systems. I've never seen anything like this. They don't fight honorably. They use tricks and deceptions. Are tricks and deceptions against the conventions? No, but... Skrillex struggled to find words. There's a way war is supposed to work. Rules beyond the written rules. Honor. Dignity. The humans ignore all of that. Taemin thought carefully before responding. Commander, may I ask a question? How many wars has your species fought? The Skrell have fought 12 wars in our recorded history. Each lasted between 6 months and 2 years. Total casualties across all wars were approximately 50,000 soldiers. The humans, Taemin said slowly, have fought thousands of wars, just among themselves. Before they ever reached space, their casualties in some single wars numbered in the millions. Skrellex's eyes widened. Millions? Against their own kind? Yes. They've had more practice at warfare than any species in the galaxy. They learned lessons none of us ever had to learn. The screen went dark. Skrillex had ended the call without saying goodbye. Taemin sat alone in his quarters and began writing his report to Jiwoo. This one was longer than the first. More detailed. More worried. The galactic forces cannot win this war using conventional tactics. The humans have spent thousands of years perfecting warfare against each other. Every strategy the Council uses, humans have already seen and countered on their own world. The question is not whether the humans will win. The question is how many will die before the Council realizes they cannot win. He paused and added one more line. I'm beginning to wonder if the galaxy made a terrible mistake, not in starting this war, but in thinking war could ever be controlled. Humans know war cannot be controlled. They've learned that lesson in Blood and Fire over thousands of years. Now they're teaching the galaxy the same lesson. Outside his window, the moon's surface was scarred with craters from the battle. Medical ships were landing to evacuate the wounded. Human and alien soldiers worked together to clear debris and recover bodies. Even in victory, the humans showed respect for the fallen enemy. Taemin watched them work until his eyes grew heavy with sleep. Tomorrow he would document more. Learn more. Try to understand the species that could be both terrible and gentle, fierce and kind all at once. But tonight, he just felt overwhelmed by what he had witnessed. Taemin couldn't sleep. It was his 10th night on the human station and his mind wouldn't stop working. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the battles, the chaos, the contradictions. He got out of bed and walked to the station's library. It was 3 a.m, ship time, and he expected to be alone, but someone was already there. Bora sat at a table surrounded by books and data tablets. She was a human woman in her 50s with gray hair tied back in a simple style. She wore civilian clothes, not a military uniform. When Taemin entered, she looked up and smiled. Can't sleep? She asked. No, you? I don't sleep much. Bora gestured at the empty chair across from her. I'm Bora, cultural liaison and historian. I teach human history to alien observers. Hyunwoo said you might come looking for me. Taemin sat down. The chair was comfortable. I need to understand. Why do humans fight so differently? That's a big question. Bora picked up one of her tablets and scrolled through information. Let me ask you something first. How many wars has your species fought? The Korean people? On Earth, many. But since joining Galactic Society, we've maintained strict neutrality, 50 years of peace. And before you reached space, before you joined the galaxy, Taman thought back to his history lessons. We had conflicts, wars with neighboring nations, civil wars, but we also had long periods of peace. Centuries sometimes, Bora nodded. That's normal for most species. You fight occasionally, then you have peace. You build, you grow, you develop technology. Then maybe you fight again, but mostly peace. Yes, that's how civilization works. Not for humans. Bora turned her tablet so Taman could see the screen. It showed a timeline of Earth's history. Red markers indicated wars. The entire timeline was covered in red. Humans have been at war with each other continuously for our entire recorded history. Not occasional wars, constant warfare. Taman stared at the timeline. That's impossible. How could any species survive that? We almost didn't many times. Bora scrolled through the timeline, stopping at various points. Here, the 30 Years' War. 1/3 of Central Europe's population died. Here, the World Wars. Over 100 million dead in total. Here, the nuclear exchange. 50 million casualties in 3 days. The numbers made Taman feel sick. Why? Why did you keep fighting? Resources, territory, religion, politics. Sometimes we didn't even need a good reason. We just fought because we were different from each other. Bora's voice was sad but steady. Every continent developed its own ways of warfare. Every culture refined its tactics. We got very, very good at killing each other. But you reached space. You survived. Barely. We almost destroyed ourselves a dozen times. Bora pulled up more files. Look at this. Nuclear weapons. Biological weapons. Chemical weapons. Weapons that could end all life on Earth. We built them. We used some of them. Then we learned to control ourselves. Taman took the tablet and read through the files. The information was horrible. Weapons designed specifically to cause maximum suffering. Tactics that targeted civilians. Wars where entire cities were burned to the ground. He felt his hands shaking. The galaxy doesn't know this, he whispered. In your application to join Galactic Society, you didn't include these details. We included enough. Most species just didn't understand what they were reading. Bora took the tablet back. When you've only fought a few wars, you can't imagine what thousands of wars look like. You can't comprehend what total warfare means. Total warfare? War where everything is a target. Soldiers, civilians, infrastructure, resources. War where the goal isn't to win battles, but to completely destroy the enemy's ability to fight. War without rules or limits, and Bora paused. We don't fight like that anymore. We learned better, but we remember how. A door opened and another person entered. It was Sang-hyun, another Korean observer like Tae-min. He looked exhausted and worried. He nodded at Bora and sat down next to Tae-min. I just came from the Drexus front, Sang-hyun said. 8 light years from here. The galactic forces tried to blockade a human colony. 300 ships against 50. What happened? Tae-min asked. The humans won. They used something called swarm tactics. Their small ships attacked in coordinated groups. No predictable patterns. The galactic fleet couldn't track them all. Half the galactic ships were destroyed. The rest retreated. Sang-hyun rubbed his eyes. I talked to the galactic admiral afterward. He said it was like fighting ghosts. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. Bora nodded slowly. Swarm tactics. We developed those fighting each other on Earth. Naval warfare. Air combat. Even ground battles. When you're outnumbered, you don't fight fair. You fight smart. But the galactic forces weren't outnumbered, Sang-hyun said. They had 6 times more ships. Doesn't matter. Humans learned a long time ago that numbers aren't everything. Strategy matters. Surprise matters. Knowing your enemy's weaknesses matters. Bora stood up and walked to a wall screen. She pulled up footage from Earth's history. Look at this battle. 300 Spartan warriors held off an army of thousands. Here. A small force of Korean naval ships defeated a massive invasion fleet using turtle ships with superior design. Here, a tiny group of Vietnamese fighters defeated the most powerful military on Earth using terrain and patience. Tae-min watched the footage. In every case, smaller forces beat larger ones through clever tactics and determination. You've been doing this for thousands of years. Yes, and every time we fought, we learned new lessons. We kept the lessons even after the wars ended. Bora sat back down. The galaxy's species learned to fight, then learned to stop fighting. Humans learned to fight better every single time. It became part of our culture. Our history. Our identity. Sang-hyun pulled out his own data pad. I have reports from 6 other fronts. The pattern is the same everywhere. Humans are outnumbered. Humans use unusual tactics. Humans win. The galactic forces don't know how to respond. They respond like any civilized species would, Bora said. They follow the rules. They use established doctrines. They try to be honorable, and they lose when Taemin thought about this. But humans also follow rules. I've seen Daon treating wounded enemies. I've seen human soldiers following the war conventions. You're not barbarians. No, we're not. We follow rules when rules exist. But we also know that rules can be bent, exploited, used as weapons themselves. Bora's expression was serious. Let me give you an example. The war conventions say you must announce your attack vectors. So the galactic forces announce where they're going to attack. But there's no rule that says you have to attack where you announced. Humans announce one direction, then attack from another. That's deception. Yes, but it's legal deception. The conventions don't require honesty. They require following procedures. Bora smiled sadly. We're very good at finding loopholes. A message alert beeped on Taemin's communicator. It was from Jiwoo. He read it quickly and felt his stomach drop. A Galactic Council peace negotiator is arriving tomorrow. Kelthora of the Avian Alliance. She's coming to negotiate surrender terms. Whose surrender? Sang-hyun asked. The humans? That's what the council expects. Taemin put his communicator away. But I don't think the humans will surrender. No, Bora agreed. We won't, we're winning. The next day, Taemin watched the peace negotiations. They took place in a neutral conference room on the station. Kelthora was a beautiful bird-like alien with blue and gold feathers. She had negotiated peace in 23 conflicts. She was confident and graceful. Across the table sat 3 human officers. One of them was Hyunwoo. He looked calm and patient. Kelthora spoke in a melodious voice. The Galactic Council acknowledges that this conflict has been more difficult than anticipated. We propose a compromise. The humans may keep mining rights to 30% of the moon's nitrogen deposits. In exchange, you will accept council oversight of your colony expansion for the next 50 years. No, Hyunwoo said simply. Kelthora blinked her large eyes. I don't think you understand. This is a generous offer. The council could destroy your forces if we committed our full military power. You could try, Hyunwoo said. His voice was still calm. But you would lose millions of soldiers in the process. Maybe tens of millions, and there's no guarantee you would win. Surely you don't believe you could defeat the entire Galactic Council? We don't want to defeat anyone. We just want what's ours. The moon, the colony. Our freedom to expand. Hyunwoo leaned forward slightly. But if you force us to fight, we will fight with everything we have. And we have a lot. Kelthora looked confused. This isn't how peace negotiations work. Both sides must compromise. We're willing to compromise, Hyunwoo said. We'll agree to sell nitrogen to other species at fair market prices. We'll accept safety inspections of our mining operations. We'll even agree to council mediation if disputes arise. But we won't give up our rights to what we legally claimed. The negotiations continued for 3 hours. Kelthora offered different compromises. The humans refused them all. Finally, the avian negotiator stood up. Her feathers were ruffled with frustration. You're being unreasonable, she said. No, we're being human. Hyunwoo stood up as well. We learned a long time ago that giving up when you're winning leads to future conflicts. If we surrender now, the council will just demand more later. 6 months into the war, everything changed. Taemin stood in the command center watching reports from 20 different battlefronts. Red markers showed Galactic Council losses. Blue markers showed human victories. The map was mostly blue. Hyunwoo stood beside him, drinking coffee as always. His uniform was different now. He had more rank symbols on his shoulders, more responsibility on his face. The council is bringing in their reserve fleets, Hyunwoo said quietly. 100 capital ships, 500,000 soldiers. They're done playing by limited warfare rules. How will humanity respond? Taemin asked. Hyunwoo was silent for a long moment. We'll do what we always do. We'll adapt. 2 days later, Taemin met Jinho. The Special Operations Commander was a lean man with quick eyes and quiet movements. He didn't walk into rooms, he appeared in them. Even his voice was soft, like he was always keeping secrets. Hyunwoo says you want to see what we really do, Jinho said. Are you sure? Some observers prefer not to know the details. I need to understand, Taemin replied. For my reports. For the galaxy, all right. Come with me. Jinho led Taemin to a secure briefing room. Inside, a dozen human soldiers sat around a table covered with maps and data displays. They all looked at Taemin when he entered, their eyes measuring him. This is Observer Taemin, Jinho said. He's cleared to watch the operation. No recording devices, Taemin. This is classified. Taemin put his recording equipment on a table outside the room. He sat down and listened. Jinho pointed at a star map. This is the Galactic Council's main supply depot. It's protected by 3 defensive stations and 2 patrol fleets. Every ship in the Council's reserve fleet gets its supplies from here. If we take it out, they can't sustain their offensive. How do you take out something that heavily defended? Taemin asked. One of the soldiers, a woman with short black hair, smiled. We don't attack the depot. We attack the supply routes leading to it. Jinho nodded. Exactly. We can't destroy the depot itself. Too much firepower protecting it. But we can make it useless. We'll cut off its supply lines, hack its communication systems, create false reports that convince the Council their supplies are fine when they're actually running out. That's deception, Taemin said. Yes, but it's also smart warfare. Why fight a strong enemy when you can make them weak first? Jinho pulled up detailed schematics. We'll send in small teams, 5 soldiers per team. They'll infiltrate the supply convoys, plant tracking devices, and create chaos. The Council will waste time investigating, and by the time they figure out what's happening, it'll be too late. Taemin watched the operation unfold over the next week. Jinho's teams moved like ghosts through space. They used small, fast ships that could hide in asteroid fields. They intercepted supply convoys and replaced computer systems with modified ones that reported false information. They didn't destroy, they sabotaged. The Galactic Council never knew what hit them. Their supply depot showed full inventory on all records. But when ships came to resupply, the warehouses were empty. Food supplies had been rerouted. Ammunition was missing. Fuel tanks had slow leaks that weren't detected until ships ran out of power in deep space. It was brilliant and terrible at the same time. Taemin met Mi-sun a week later. She was the captain of a human destroyer called the Fierce Wind. Her ship was small compared to galactic capital ships, but it moved like a living thing, fast, agile, unpredictable. We're going into battle today, Mi-sun told Taemin. You wanted to see human naval tactics. This is your chance. The battle took place near a gas giant. The Galactic Council had sent 15 heavy cruisers to blockade a human supply route. Mi-sun's fleet had only 8 destroyers. The odds didn't look good, but Mi-sun wasn't worried. Watch and learn, she said from her command chair. The Galactic cruisers formed a standard defensive wall. They expected the human ships to either try to break through or retreat. Instead, Mi-sun's fleet split up. Each destroyer went in a different direction. What are you doing? Taemin asked. We're not fighting as a fleet. We're fighting as hunters. Mi-sun studied her tactical display. See how the galactic ships are positioned? Perfect formation. Perfect spacing. Perfect targets. The human destroyers curved around the gas giant, using its gravity to accelerate. They came at the galactic cruisers from 8 different angles at once. The cruisers tried to track them all, but their weapons couldn't lock on to targets moving that fast and that unpredictably. Mi-sun's ship fired missiles, not at the cruisers, but at the space between them. The missiles exploded and released thousands of small metal fragments. The fragments spread out like clouds. When the galactic cruisers tried to move, they ran into these clouds. The fragments tore through their hull armor like paper. That's called a debris field attack, Mi-sun explained. We learned it from ancient Korean naval tactics. Admiral Yi Sun-sin used similar strategies with turtle ships against Japanese invasion fleets. Make the enemy move into your traps instead of chasing them into theirs. The battle lasted 30 minutes. All 15 galactic cruisers were disabled or destroyed. The human fleet lost no ships. Taemin sent urgent reports to Jiwoo every day. His messages grew more desperate. The Galactic Council doesn't understand what they're facing. Human military tactics come from thousands of years of warfare experience. Every strategy the Council uses, humans have already seen and countered on their own world. The Council needs to stop escalating. Every escalation just makes things worse. Jiwoo's response came back 2 days later. The Council has voted to escalate further. They're authorizing the use of advanced weapons, kinetic bombardment, atmospheric modification, non-lethal biological agents. They believe overwhelming force is the only answer. Taemin showed the message to Hyunwoo. The human officer read it and sighed. They're making a mistake. Will humanity surrender? No. We'll match their escalation. Hyunwoo pulled up classified files on his datapad. We didn't want to use these weapons. We hoped the council would negotiate reasonably. But if they escalate, so will we. The files showed weapons Taemin had never seen before. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to a fraction of light speed. Computer viruses designed to shut down entire ship networks. Kinetic kill vehicles that struck with nuclear-level force but left no radiation. These are terrible weapons, Taemin whispered. Yes, but they're legal under Galactic War conventions. We checked carefully. Hyunwoo closed the files. We built them just in case. We hoped we'd never need them. But we're not going to lose this war because we weren't prepared. The next battle demonstrated the new weapons. The Galactic Council launched kinetic bombardment against a human colony. Massive metal rods dropped from orbit, hitting the surface with explosive force. Buildings collapsed. Infrastructure was damaged. Hundreds of civilians died. The human response was immediate. Railguns mounted on orbital stations fired back. Their projectiles punched through 3 galactic capital ships in a single shot. The ships exploded in silence, their debris scattering across space. A galactic biological weapon was released on a human agricultural station. The weapon was designed to make crops fail and cause uncomfortable but non-lethal illness in humans. Within hours, human counteragents neutralized the biological weapon. Then human tactical viruses infiltrated the galactic fleet's computer systems. Ships lost power. Communications failed. Weapons wouldn't fire. Taemin documented everything with a heavy heart. This wasn't the limited civilized warfare the galaxy was used to. This was something else. Something darker. He sent a classified message to the Korean Stellar Commonwealth's government. We must intervene, not to save humanity. They're winning. We must intervene to save the galaxy from what humanity will become if this continues. Every escalation teaches humans that greater violence works. Every victory shows them that overwhelming force is effective. If this war continues, humanity will become what the galaxy fears most. Not because they're evil, but because they're too good at warfare. The response from his government came quickly. We agree. The Korean Stellar Commonwealth is breaking 50 years of neutrality. We're calling for an emergency Galactic Council session. We'll present your reports and argue for immediate peace negotiations. But Taemin knew it might be too late. The war had taken on a momentum of its own. The Council couldn't admit defeat without losing face. Humanity couldn't negotiate from a weak position after losing so many people. He sat in his quarters late at night and stared at the casualty reports. The Galactic Council had lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Humanity had lost tens of thousands. Both numbers were horrible. Both were growing every day. On his desk was a small photo. Dalian had given it to him last week. It showed her medical team treating wounded soldiers. Human and alien doctors worked side by side. Human and alien patients lay in the same recovery room. We're still trying to save everyone, Daun had told him. Even in the middle of escalation. Even when both sides are using worse weapons. We still believe that every life matters. Taemin picked up the photo and studied it. This was the contradiction at the heart of humanity. They could create terrible weapons and use them without hesitation. But they also healed their enemies and mourned every death. A message alert beeped. It was from Hyunwoo. The Council's Supreme Commander wants to meet. 6 months after the war ended, Taemin returned to the disputed moon. He stood at the edge of a crater where the first battle had taken place. The scars were still visible in the rocky ground, but something new had grown around them. Buildings, gardens under transparent domes. A small school where children played. The war had ended 3 weeks after the Council's failed massive offensive. Not with humanity's defeat, but with the Council's surrender. Taemin had testified at the Emergency Galactic Council session, showing his recordings and reports. Other neutral observers had done the same. Together they convinced the Council that continued warfare would only bring more devastation to both sides. The Council's Supreme Commander, Dralvakesh, had looked at Taemin's evidence and made a simple statement. We cannot win this war without destroying ourselves in the process. Humanity has shown us something we didn't know was possible. That a species could be simultaneously our greatest threat and our most reliable ally. We choose to make them the latter. Now standing in the rebuilt colony, Taemin watched as human and alien workers constructed a medical research center together. A hive collective insectoid worked alongside a human engineer, both consulting the same blueprint. They talked and laughed about something Taemin couldn't hear. Surprising, isn't it? Taemin turned to see Eunji walking toward him. She was the human diplomat in charge of reconstruction efforts, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and permanent smile lines around her mouth. Very surprising, Taemin admitted. 6 months ago, they were trying to kill each other. 6 months is a long time. Eunji stood beside him, watching the construction. We've built 17 new facilities on this moon. Hospitals, schools, research centers, farms. Half are joint projects between human and Galactic Council species. We're calling it the Peace Moon Project. The Council agreed to this, enthusiastically. Turns out that once you stop fighting someone, you can actually talk to them. Eunji smiled. We offered to share our agricultural technology, our medical advances, our engineering techniques, not as reparations but as partnership. The Council accepted. Taemin pulled out his datapad and took notes. Why, after everything that happened, why show such generosity? Because that's what humans do. Eunji pointed at the construction workers. We fight hard when we have to, but we also build hard when we can. Both are part of who we are. The galaxy only saw the first part during the war. Now they're seeing the second part. They walked toward the medical center. Inside, Taemin saw familiar faces. Dayun was there, training a mixed group of human and alien medical students. She saw Taemin and waved. He waved back. Dayun is teaching galactic doctors human emergency medicine techniques, Eunji explained. Turns out our methods for treating trauma are very advanced. Thousands of years of warfare taught us a lot about saving lives. That's a dark way to gain knowledge. Yes, but at least we can use it to help others now. Eunji led him to an office where refreshments waited. Sit. I'll tell you about the other projects. Over tea, Eunji explained the reconstruction efforts. Human engineers were helping rebuild damaged galactic stations. Human farmers were teaching advanced crop rotation to species whose agriculture was less developed. Human psychologists were working with trauma survivors on both sides. We're not doing this out of guilt, Eunji said carefully. We defended ourselves. We don't apologize for that. But we also don't want permanent enemies. We want partners. Friends if possible. Taemin met Velkaris the next day. The reptilian soldier had survived the first battle where Taemin had watched in horror as human tactics overwhelmed galactic forces. Now Velkaris worked as a security consultant, helping design defensive systems for the new colony. I don't understand you, Velkaris said to Taemin. They sat in a small restaurant that served both human and alien food. Your people stayed neutral during the war. You didn't help either side. That's what neutral means, Taemin replied. But your reports helped end the war. You showed the council what they were facing. You probably saved millions of lives. Velkaris ate some of his meal, chewing thoughtfully. Were you trying to help the council? Or humanity? Both, neither. I was trying to help truth. Taemin chose his words carefully. The galaxy didn't understand humans. The council thought humans were primitive newcomers who could be easily defeated. I showed them the truth. That humans are experienced warriors who learned their skills through terrible necessity. And now both sides understand each other better. That's worth something. Velkaris was quiet for a moment. The humans explained something to me. They said they don't hate their enemies. They fear losing. There's a difference. Once we stopped being a threat, we stopped being enemies. Do you believe that? I'm not sure, but I'm willing to try. Velkaris gestured at the window. Outside, humans and aliens walked together through the colony streets. Look at them. 6 months ago, we were killing each other. Now we're building together. Maybe humans are right. Maybe enemies can become friends if both sides want it enough. Taemin spent the next week traveling to different reconstruction sites. Everywhere he went, he saw the same pattern. Humans working alongside former enemies, sharing technology, sharing knowledge, sharing meals and stories. At one site, he met Young Soo again, the combat engineer who had built the tunnel systems during the war, now designed underground farming facilities. He showed Taemin plans for hydroponic gardens that could feed 10,000 people. Same skills, different purpose, Young Soo said cheerfully. I'm good at digging and building underground structures. During war, I used that to create tactical advantages. Now I use it to create food security. Much better use of my talents. Do you miss combat? Taemin asked. Young-soo considered the question seriously. No, I'm good at it, but I don't enjoy it. Most soldiers feel that way. We fight when necessary, but we prefer to build. War is the last resort, not the first choice. Taemin's brother Seok-jin arrived on the moon 2 weeks after Taemin's return. He was a data analyst for the Korean Stellar Commonwealth, assigned to help compile final reports on the war. The brothers sat together in Taemin's temporary quarters reviewing months of documentation. Your reports changed everything, Seok-jin said. The Korean government used them to break 50 years of neutrality policy. Now we have formal alliances with humanity. Other species are following our example. I just reported what I saw. You did more than that. You helped the galaxy understand a species they feared. Seok-jin scrolled through files on his datapad. The Galactic Military Academy now includes human strategic studies in their curriculum. Not to teach killing, but to teach problem-solving under pressure. Human military advisors are consulting with 6 different species on defensive strategies. The galaxy is changing. Yes, because of what humans revealed. That survival experience matters. That innovation comes from necessity. That the most dangerous species can also be the most valuable allies. Seok-jin looked at his brother. You documented all of that. You showed the galaxy what they needed to see. Taemin thought about this. His reports had started as simple observation, but they had become something more. A bridge between species. A way for the galaxy to understand humanity not as enemies, but as partners with unique and valuable experience. The final part of Taemin's journey took him to a memorial site. It was a large stone structure, built on the highest point of the moon. Names were carved into the stone. Thousands of names. Human and alien soldiers who had died during the war. A ceremony was taking place when Taemin arrived. Humans and aliens stood together in silence. Some were military officers. Others were civilians. All had lost someone during the conflict. Hyunwoo stood near the front. He wore a formal dress uniform. When he saw Taemin, he nodded and made space for him to stand nearby. A human commander spoke first, reading names from the memorial. Then an alien commander did the same, back and forth. Human names, alien names, all equal, all remembered. After the ceremony, Hyunwoo and Taemin walked along the memorial's perimeter. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the rocky ground. I never wanted this war, Hyunwoo said quietly. None of us did. We just wanted to live in peace and build our colonies. But when the council demanded we leave, we had to choose. Submit to unfair demands or fight for what we believed was right. You chose to fight, yes, and we won. But the cost was terrible. Hyunwoo touched the memorial stone. 8,000 human soldiers died. Over 200,000 Galactic Council forces died. Those numbers haunt me. But you also chose to build peace afterward. Of course, we never wanted permanent enemies. We just wanted to survive and be left alone. Once the council understood they couldn't force us to submit, they became willing to negotiate fairly. That's all we ever wanted, fair treatment. Taemin looked out at the colony. Lights were coming on in windows as evening approached. Children played in a park under a protective dome. Workers headed home after their shifts. It looked peaceful, normal. The galaxy learned something important, Taemin said, that humanity contains multitudes. Brutal warriors and gentle healers. Ruthless strategists and generous diplomats, all in the same species, sometimes in the same person.